A little more than a year from now, we're going to be heading to the polls to vote who should be the next president and vice president of the United States. And that means also you could possibly see a third-party candidate, with independent candidate Robert Kennedy Jr. announcing yesterday in Philadelphia, just down from Independence Hall, declaring independence from the Republican Party, from the Democrat Party from which he came, and saying that it is time for Americans, not the corporate leaders of the political class, to be the deciders as to what happens with this country. Kennedy Jr., RFK Jr., he is a controversial figure. There's no question. He's an environmentalist, somebody who, as a lawyer, has fought for environmental rights and for people to have clean water and clean food and so on. He's also been very outspoken about forced vaccination. He says he's not anti-vaccine, although he's been labeled that way for how he's recently written about vaccines, and especially his book about Anthony Fauci, the real Anthony Fauci, which I've delved a little bit into it, and holy cow, it's pretty remarkable, the stuff that he's uncovered in that book. But RFK Jr. Running as an independent, making that announcement yesterday, just down from Independence Hall, and let's hear from what RFK Jr. had to say and what he is declaring independence from. So again, this was yesterday. He spoke for about 50 minutes, but pretty fascinating to hear the things that he lays out in his speech as to what exactly he is declaring independence from in his third-party bid for the White House.
I'm here to join you in making a new Declaration of Independence for our entire nation. We declare independence from the corporations that have hijacked our government. And we declare independence from Wall Street, from big tech, from big pharma, from big ag, from the military contractors and their lobbyists. And we declare independence from the mercenary media that is here to fortify all the corporate orthodoxies from their advertisers and to urge us to hate our neighbors and to fear our friends. And we declare independence from the cynical elites who betray our hope and who amplify our divisions. And finally, we declare independence from the two political parties. And the corrupt interests that dominate them and the entire rigged system of rancor, of rage, of corruption, of lies that has turned government officials into indentured servants for their corporate bosses. We declare independence from these corrupting powers because they are incompatible with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that the people who sat in that hallway ratified for us in 1776.
Again, you've got Kennedy making this announcement just down the street from Independence Hall, and saying that he's declaring his independence from corporate masters. He's declaring his independence from partisan politics. This coming from a long-time Democrat. I mean, his father was shot and killed when he was running as a Democrat for president. His uncle was shot and killed as president of the United States. And here is RFK Jr. Saying that he wants to lead the country. He made some analogies to, reprogramming the GPS. So where he's not just getting behind the wheel and taking the pre-programmed GPS, he says is being programmed by corporate, dictators of sorts. He says, no, they're going to reprogram the GPS and put the American people in charge of the direction of the country. He's just going to be at the wheel listening to the American people. What's fascinating here, though, is the opposition is so strong against Kennedy making an independent bid. It's not just from what he called militant media, which is an interesting tag to put onto what some may say is the corporate media or the mainstream media. It's not just opposition from them. It's not just opposition from Democrat establishment types. Even some of Kennedy's own family saying that this is no good. Kerry Kennedy posted on Twitter saying that Bobby might share the same name as our father, but he does not share the same values, vision, or judgment. Today's announcement is deeply saddening for us. We denounce his candidacy and believe that it is perilous for our country. So obviously you've got the question of, the decision for Bobby Kennedy to run against Joe Biden and what's expected to be, the Republican nominee, former President Donald Trump. But let's hear back what Kennedy had to say in some of his final remarks about the idea of getting away from partisan rancor, about the idea of not having the two-party system further push people to the extremes, but rather to have people come to the middle, listen to each other, and actually do politics where it's give and take, where it's working together, where it's finding common ground. So here is Robert Kennedy Jr. in his announcement in Philadelphia yesterday, laying out that indeed he wants to ensure to bring the people together. And one of the taglines on the signs I saw from yesterday's rally said, "Heal the divide. Kennedy 2024." So here's independent candidate Robert Kennedy Jr.
That an open border was a humanitarian policy.
Actually, let me set this up because he did talk about the division, right, and how people are so spread apart. One thing he did mention was he said, people are so divided. You have pro-life people on one extreme and pro-choice people on another extreme, but they can find common ground. He also said you've got people who can find common ground, who are ardent supporters of the Second Amendment, with people who want what he says is common sense gun control. Not sure what that portends for him to ultimately fall on the Second Amendment, where he is on that. Obviously, we'll hear a lot more about that in the weeks and months ahead. But Kennedy also talked about his position on the border, where he said 6 months ago he thought an open border was actually humanitarian, until he went onto the ground and actually saw it for himself firsthand.
An open border was a humanitarian policy, and that if you were for sealing the border, it meant that you were probably a xenophobe and maybe a racist. I was wrong. How did I learn I was wrong? It wasn't just that I listened. It wasn't just that I listened to the other side. It was when I actually visited the border and listened to people who weren't on either side. My views changed as I spoke to Border Patrol officers, to local officials, to local sheriffs, aid workers, and to the migrants themselves. I saw that no one party has a monopoly on wisdom, and none of the simplistic narratives actually contain the whole truth. My promise to you as president is that I'm going to do this on every issue. I'm going to listen to stakeholders. Dogmatic opposition is just as much a form of dependency as dogmatic loyalty. As president, I'm going to work with officials from both parties who want to join me in serving our nation rather than exploiting and searching for partisan political advantage. Every president enters office promising to unite the nation and to work with people from the other party across the aisle. None of them ever does it. They can't. They're already chosen a side. Well, I'm not going to have that problem. I'm going to build coalitions from both sides of the aisle. What that means is that members of Congress will start working together across party lines in ways that we've barely seen for a generation.
So what does this mean? It means that RFK Jr. does not need to go through a primary.
I'm here to join.
It means that he is going to essentially be on the general election ballot if he gets all the petitions in the right place. It means that he's going to be somebody that might have to be considered for a potential debate. That means that all the polling is going to have to include RFK Jr. as a possible outcome, and what that's going to look like in the days, months, and weeks ahead. And really the question is, the Ross Perot effect. And you remember Ross Perot being a third-party candidate during Bush Clinton, and then again with Bush Dole, I believe it was, or Dole and Clinton. So what's the third-party impact going to be? What's that third-party factor going to be? Is it going to draw people away from Biden? Is it going to draw people away from the Republican, which looks like it very well could be former President Trump? Or is it going to be enough to get, say, 35% of the votes while the other candidates only get, 32%? So this is going to be fascinating. Another interesting twist and turn in the political conversation here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop. Follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop.